6 p.m. on Monday, May 5th. I will now call to order this meeting of the Winooski City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Deputy Mayor Jim Duncan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next up is agenda review. Any questions or concerns about the order this evening? No. Okay. Public comment is next. I know somebody was signed up, but there is no one in attendance or on Zoom, right, Paul? I don't see any attendees.
That is correct. We had one person signed up so that they would be in attendance, and if they're not there, they are not there.
Okay. So we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have our liquor control and city council minutes from April 18. Were you just not at that one, right?
I was not there.
Okay. So first, we'll take that separately. Are there any concerns, questions about the minutes?
No.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from 4/18?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bryn, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item B is the accounts payable warrant for April 28th. April 28th, and the payroll warrant for April 3rd to 16th, and subsequent to payout warrant for February 2022. Any questions, concerns about that?
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Are you here for public comment, perchance? Would you guys be opposed to returning to that item?
No.
Okay. We had just passed it, but you are not too late. If you want to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself, you can make your comment. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. Is this a hot mic?
It should be.
Okay. Hi, my name's Joe O'Brien. I emailed with one
Staff.
of you.
He's on the Zoom.
Yeah, earlier today, so thank you for that quick turnaround. I literally just reached out today and just kind of wanted an opportunity to chat with the council about some concerns that I had about the lack of line of sight at the intersection here of Weaver and West Allen. In particular, if you are stopping just right down here, I live right across the street on the corner of Weaver and West Allen. And now that it's nice out and I spend a lot of time on my side porch and have dinner out there, it's side porch season for me, and I see at least a dozen times a week near accidents happen at this intersection. And it's just really concerning, and I guess selfishly it's more important to me now that like I have a 1-year-old child, my wife is pregnant, we live right here, so we do that intersection multiple times every day, and you just can't see oncoming traffic when folks have stopped at the intersection of Mallets Bay Ave and they're turning left onto West Allen. There's no stop sign or anything to slow them down until they get to the circle. So what I see is that people are coming up to this rolling stop on going up Weaver, and it is kind of at a slope, so people really feel like they kind of need to roll through it. And so you pair that with the fact that they can't really see oncoming traffic because of the parking spots that are aligned just right here on West Allen. And so the combination of folks are coming really fast once they turn left onto West Allen Street with the lack of visibility looking left down West Allen Street just feels like a really dangerous situation. And I would hate for us to wait for something terrible to happen before we do anything about it. Seems like something that could be remedied pretty easily with a stop sign or a speed bump, or just even one of those reflective mirrors to allow people to see better would make a big difference. It just feels very dangerous, and seems like there could be something fairly easy that we could do to make it safer. That's kind of my big concern that I wanted to bring to the table. And then in the same regard, same idea, And again, this is kind of all based off of my own lived experiences. I'm sure that there are other intersections that are this challenging, but for the same reason, it's really tricky to turn left off of Mansion Street onto Main Street, because again, there are parking spots that come so close to that intersection that if you're turning left, you really have to inch out as far as you can. You're really into the middle of Main Street at that point. And it's just really challenging and dangerous to turn left there. And so I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the council. I don't know if it's something that's been brought to your attention before, but it's something that I see on a daily basis near accidents, and I've lived it many times of almost getting hit there. So that's what I have for you.
Well, thank you. We happen to have our Director of Public Works here. John, is there anything you want to share about?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that intersection, because we've done some improvements on West Canal and Weaver, similar to that. That geometry is a little tricky, as
Yeah.
you mentioned. So
Yeah.
we have removed some parking spaces on either side of the intersection and have done the reflective mirror, and that might even warrant a stop sign. So we will take a look at that intersection. The Main Street project that we're working on does take care of some of those issues that you mentioned on Main and Mansion. We've noticed that too.
Yeah.
So we're looking at eliminating some of those side parking
Okay.
spaces.
Yeah.
A pitch, we do have space on our Municipal Infrastructure Commission if you're ever interested in
Okay.
joining
All
regularly.
right. Yeah.
So,
Again, this is kind of, I don't know if selfish is the right word, but it's just something that I experience every day because I leave my house here every morning. I go and I drop my dog off at my parents' house. They live on Mansion Street. And then I go to turn left down Main Street to get to childcare drop off. So every day I'm living this, and it's like, wow, this is dangerous. This is happening every single day. And so that's just kind of why I wanted to make sure that y'all were aware of it. So
Definitely. Thank you for coming in.
yeah, thanks for having me on short notice.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay around or exit whenever you wish.
Yeah, I've got to get home. Thank you.
I imagine with the window.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Still no virtual attendees too, so we'll get back into the agenda. We are at council reports. Can I start with you, Aurora?
Sure. This time I don't have anything new to report. We haven't had another meeting of the Safe Publicly Connected People Commission
Sure.
yet.
No worries. Bryn?
Sure. Our Infrastructure Commission met on April 21st. We reviewed the draft traffic calming manual, which goes well with the recent public comment we had from Joe. We also reviewed the parking management plan that came to council previously, and a recent, essentially an energy assessment. It's kind of like a self-evaluation of where you are with some best practices. So it looks at whether or not there is a policy in place, whether or not there are any designated goals to look or manage energy consumption, things along those lines. So it's a free online self-assessment.
For internal
Correct.
resources? Yeah.
Correct, for the city, exactly. And we also reviewed the updates for our strategic planning meeting that's coming up, and progress on our goals for the year. Some are stalled, like the stormwater ordinance update, and others we've completed, such as the Main Street revitalization review. So that's gone well. Our next meeting, we're getting on track for monthly, as I mentioned. So our next meeting will be May 19th. And that, at least at the moment, is planned for in person, so long, here at City Hall, so long as we don't have a conflict with another commission that night. And by way of other updates, I am the commissioner for Chittenden Solid Waste District, so just want to mention that the board has approved a budget, and we'll likely hear that presentation at our next city council meeting on the 16th. And the board has also provided approval for the staff to move forward with a request to bond for a new materials recovery facility, so a new MRF. The one we have is outdated and inefficient, and it's the cost to upgrade it versus the cost to build new. Actually, it makes more sense to just start from scratch and build new. But there will be a lot more information coming about that, so there'll be a wealth of opportunities for input and comment and question Q&A, stakeholder input. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jim?
Sure. The only update I have, I think this was shared at the last meeting, but the Winooski centennial tree will be planted on May 7th. We're having a kind of planting ceremony at 11 o'clock at Richards Park. We have a substantial red oak tree that'll be planted at that site, which will be a great tree to kick off the next 100 years of urban forests in the city. We'll be following that up with a Cassavant ash walk. So there's some trees that are tagged in Cassavant Park, natural area, that are ash trees that are at risk from emerald ash borer. So those trees will have a forester who will be taking us through to look at that site and some of the forest planning challenges that we'll have as we learn to live with EAB. So I'd invite community members and council members and others who are interested to come to those two events. Should be a good day outside, provided that the weather cooperates. And other than that, I have no other updates.
Thank you. Thomas?
I do not have any updates. My commission did meet, however, they were prepping for this meeting, so we decided to table my introduction to a time where it wasn't as busy for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have two updates. Since our last meeting, I had a meeting with the school board chair. So you may or may not be, we used to, myself and the chair and the superintendent and city manager used to do a quarterly meeting. You know, one of the recommendations we saw in the equity audit at our last meeting was about strengthening the city-school relationship. Unfortunately, with staff transitions in the pandemic, that has really gotten loose, fallen off a bit. So we are going to start rescheduling that, especially with our new manager starting. Also spoke with her about year-round busing, which was one of the audit recommendations, and she shared that they have a plan in place to provide that next year. I know they're also in contact with Green Mountain Transit. Jim and I have been drafting an engagement strategy for the city council to try to kind of formalize activities we used to do to regularly maintain outreach. I'm also going to share that with the board chair and see how we can have the school leadership, you know, kind of work together on this. And so that is something that we should be bringing forward at a future meeting here for us to look at as a full group. Then I also had a check-in with our Green Mountain Transit rep. He shared that the state has awarded GMT enough funds to stay fare-free for an additional year, and that they're working now on a 3-year budget. We also heard at our last meeting that the Regional Planning Commission is completing this public transit funding study, which was shared with us via email. I think that's something that we're going to want to be looking at maybe in the fall ahead of the next legislative session to potentially see changes there to help improve the situation here in town. And so that is something that our rep will help us stay connected to. That's it for me. John, city updates?
Thank you. So a few city updates tonight. Busy weekend coming up. So as Jim mentioned, there's a centennial tree planting, and then we also have Green Up Day happening on May 7th. So base of operations is going to be at the Senior Center this year. That's going to be open from 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. You can get bags, safety info, refreshments. There's going to be a huge dumpster to find all your treasures. And then if you do want to pick up bags ahead of time, we do have them here at City Hall, so you can pick them up this week while City Hall is open until Friday. Or you can pick them up at the library at 32 Mallet's Bay, and that is also open on Saturday, so you can find bags there. And then, you know, once on Saturday, you know, if you're collecting debris, if you don't take it up to the Senior Center, just drop it off sort of at a conspicuous place along the roadway, and our community service team will be hunting for them as after 12 p.m. I also want to give thanks to the Winooski Police Department and the Winooski Partnership for Prevention. So April 30th was the National Drug Take Back Day. So that was another successful partnership with the Winooski Partnership and Prevention folks. So just want to give thanks to them. I-89 2050 study. There's a public input meeting coming up May 10th at 6 p.m. It's a remote meeting. So that'll be the last sort of public input meeting. This is a sort of a visioning and goals session to look at the next 30 years of I-89 through Chittenden County. So if you have any recommendations, that would be sort of last chance to get your public feedback in. You can get more details at envision89.com. It's also on our city website if you go to the bottom and look at news updates. ARPA surveys. So we are still looking for input on the community ARPA survey. So, the intent is we want to hear about your negative impacts, what you've experienced during COVID-19, and Paul Sarn and Yasmin Gordon will be presenting a multilingual in-person outreach plan to you during the May 16th council meeting. And then there's also going to be some sessions at the Winooski Memorial Library coming up in likely June. Just a heads up on COVID safety. So you've probably seen Chittenden County has joined more than half of the other Vermont counties in returning to sort of a high rates of COVID level. So something we're tracking here internally. We've gotten, I think about 5 case counts internally right now. So something we're still all looking at on the public safety side. And then just this is more of a heads up. So you may remember back in 2018, we approved the Chittenden County Public Safety Authority, CCPSA, which is the Regional Emergency Dispatch Initiative. So that included Burlington, Colchester, Milton, and South Burlington. It's been a little quiet. You guys haven't gotten updates in a while, but there's been some recent funding from the feds and an earmark from Welch's office that's starting to ramp that up a little bit. And we're also looking at some proposed funding from the state potentially coming through. So internally, Chief Audie, Chief Hebert, Angela, they're starting to look at what we need to do internally to sort of get ready for a future transition. And you will likely be hearing more from some of the other regional dispatch folks in the future. So just a heads up, that is still moving along, and there's probably going to be some stuff coming your way in the not too distant future. And then last thing, if I get this correct, Eid Mubarak. So celebration of, I believe that's blessed celebration for our friends celebrating the end of Ramadan. So just wanted to share that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, John. Okay, this brings us to item 8. A public hearing has been noticed for the consideration of updates to Chapter 28 fees. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing. It's 6:17 p.m. to take any comment from the public. Is Angela on? Can you just do a quick summary?
Sure, absolutely. So this has come to the council twice before. This is updates relating to the zoning and public works departments to cover administrative overhead for their permit applications, adding fees for the public records request policy, and updating the marriage license fees for the clerk's office to be in line with state statute.
Thank you, Angela. So we have seen this before and asked questions and received information. The intent of the public hearing is to receive public input. And unless Meredith has anything to share, I don't see any attendees from the public. So seeing no comment, I will close the public hearing. It's 6:18. But this is another chance if there's anything else on council's mind. If you want to ask, feel free. Angela, how many do we have to do before we can approve? Is it just one hearing required?
Yep, you can actually approve this tonight, and then the ordinance will have 30 days before it is in effect.
Okay. Well, I think it seems like we're set with this. I have not had any public outreach about it, even outside of this. If anyone did want to make a motion to approve, we could put this to bed. We could also wait till next meeting.
I'll move that we approve the ordinance change.
Second.
Motion to approve by Jim, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on to our regular items, and up first, on for approval is consideration of applications for COVID recovery business grants, with Angela introducing.
Sure, it sounds like Meredith is there as well. Downtown Winooski was a key partner in this program. The City Council approved the use of up to $100,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act funding for COVID-19 recovery business grants. We had the guidelines for that grant program also approved by council in February. The program was pushed out through downtown Winooski and through the city channels, and we received a total of 3 applications before the deadline of April 8th. The information was reviewed by staff to determine that all of the information we needed was provided. Information was redacted and submitted to downtown Winooski for independent review and recommendations regarding approval. Meredith drafted a memo regarding the recommendations of downtown Winooski, which was included in your packet. I have the information regarding the businesses should the council want that information, but all are local businesses that have been here for a little while. Applicant A and B were recommended for just straight approval, and applicant C, we're just going to need to confirm with them the use of the funding will be restricted to the items that are allowed. They indicated purchase of supplies, which was not an allowable use of the grant, but we believe that they have enough business lease costs and infrastructure improvement to their new facility that will be able to be covered by this $10,000.
Thank you, Angela. Meredith, do you want to add any overview or just get into questions? Okay. I'll start by asking, so in here, in your memo, you shared that the board felt that they couldn't rate, or they didn't have enough information for the rating based on profit and loss, pre-pandemic profitability, sorry. So we had asked applicants to include tax returns pre-pandemic. Were those not included? Like, what is?
They were received from all applicants.
Okay. So can you like describe a little more like why the board felt they couldn't use that as a rating?
So we were given redacted information, which was a request. We didn't feel that the committee, which is the board, was acting as the committee, should act as a financial institution and be able to, review financial documents. So we reviewed what the redacted information that we were given, and the board, I believe everyone except for one person who was part of the committee is a business owner. And so they were looking at their own experience and basically saying that the numbers that they were seeing were a little bit confusing, and unless they saw the primary documents, which they didn't want to see, it would not make sense for us to rate the applicants.
Okay.
So the rating criteria that was approved in the guidelines by council was a revenue loss of plus or minus 5% compared to the industry standard for their sector of business, we do not have a reference point for that revenue loss. So the amount of revenue from 2019 and the amount of revenue from 2020 were provided to the board, but they had no standard to base how close that was to the loss experienced by the average business. And I don't have that metric at hand to provide.
Yeah, I suspect that's a gap in the handoff from staff who designed this.
Yeah. We tried to uphold her beautiful vision, but
And then there's this recommendation in here not to rely on the certification for minority or women-owned business, so just self-report.
right, that's obviously not something that can be changed at this point, but we heard that from just one of the comments that we heard from the committee, as well as some of the businesses who didn't apply and the businesses who did. One of that we heard that they maybe weren't certified or didn't know that they should be certified or had a different certification than what was listed.
Mm-hmm.
If this had been a more competitive process, if we had had more applicants than we had funding, this would definitely be something that we could take a look at, but we didn't have more applicants than funding available.
Yeah. And then I think there's also an NA, y'all didn't rate on retaining business types underrepresented or lacking.
Again, we did not have that rubric to be able to say what to make a judgment call on that.
Yep. I think that's something that's in like our economic development plan. But also sounds like a gap in transition of this.
I also do think though that the reason why we felt some, I don't want to say comfort, but some, like we didn't necessarily feel we had to schedule a second committee meeting for review because there wasn't a competitive process. If there had been a question of a point making a difference, we would have dug into that, of whatever available data there was, but at this point we felt, that was a better course of action.
Okay.
I don't believe any of the businesses that applied are a type that is desired/needed by the community. We had spa businesses and a restaurant. So those are things that are pretty prevalent here in the city.
Okay. So essentially we're rating them as only on retaining jobs and employing Winooski residents. However, to your point, it's not very competitive. Do you have anything to share about the low application? Like, do you have any insight on that?
I do. There was the two major camps, and again, this is what was shared with me. And then one, I got a few comments like third party, like through another person, which, I obviously didn't hear them directly.
Yeah.
So again, take that with, the consideration that some people may not have been comfortable sharing feedback with me. The two camps that we received were that there was confusion about the economic bridge loan grant. There was people that felt they couldn't apply for it for some reason, and we tried to do coaching, like, no, just say no and say why. There was a place for that on the application, but that seemed to be something that was intimidating or a barrier. I had that conversation over and over and over again with people. And then we also received information from potential applicants that said that the process, because there wasn't an official opportunities credit union does with this small business loan, they were concerned about their financial information basically appearing at city council. And that was something that was a huge barrier. So huge learning experience. I mean, that was the biggest one, was that there wasn't as private of a process as that people were hoping. And yeah, I think there were probably other people that felt there were barriers to apply just based on the application, different aspects of it, but they didn't come up more than once. But yeah, the economic bridge loan piece and then the sort of privacy aspect also was a factor.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, super good insight.
Was there a meeting held to answer questions following the announcement?
We didn't have a public meeting, no, but I did a lot of outreach in various ways that we typically would do outreach. I did emails, social media, then I did like pointed emails, so to a specific person, since I know that those people don't open emails. And then I also printed out the guidelines packet and dropped it off at probably a dozen local businesses that I know are not, either English as their second language, and they have someone else helping them with these kinds of applications, or they just prefer paper and they don't like email. And I also did quite a bit of phone calls and things like that. So we didn't actually, we asked people if they wanted translation services or additional help, and we didn't receive any requests. Perhaps it wasn't presented in a clear enough way, I don't know, but I definitely did present that option to everyone. And then I made a pointed, case for the businesses I knew where English is not their first language, or they might have some barrier there. So the personal outreach, I think, was there.
And personally, I received a number of emails asking for some information, which was provided, and had put Meredith in connection with a couple of businesses that had reached out to me asking for some assistance, or there was some confusion, and they just did an in-person consultation about it. We had a number of businesses that indicated that they would apply that we did not see applications from.
Okay.
It sounds like there were some businesses that you think wanted to apply, but the process was a little confusing or not as, a little more transparent than they were hoping in terms of their financial data. Do you think as a result, as to not being able to apply to this grant, they're going to experience long-term financial difficulties?
I mean, sure. I think that also it's difficult to get into the mind of a small business owner. To me, I think reaching for $10,000 that essentially doesn't have a ton of restrictions. I thought the 4 buckets that we presented were quite wide. I thought that was going to be like a huge, easy grab for people because we were hearing this and we continued to hear this. But I think, yeah, there was like a weighing of like, okay, well, I really need this funding to continue operations to the level that I want to. But these things are preventing me from doing that and kind of making that case for themselves. And I think being a small business owner, they have a lot going on in their minds. They probably, I mean, again, Angela received inquiries. I probably received, 10 plus inquiries, serious inquiries from people that I talked through things with that didn't apply. So I'm a little bit surprised, but I can't, speak to the exact reason why, except for what they shared with me.
And then I guess in that light, and I don't know what the rules are around it, but is this something that would be able to be opened up again with changes to the parameters so that it does meet those concerns that those businesses had in terms of applying?
I would say that I would want to have an entire program change. So not just on the criteria, but also on the entities reviewing. Like, I don't think the board should be reviewing it, because that seems to be a barrier.
We could ask staff to come back with another iteration, potentially more aligned to the Small Business Loan Fund or through OCU. It would take longer for that to happen. I know particularly like if we were trying to run through the credit union, there could be some hold up there.
There would also be a fee associated with running something through the credit union.
Well, I also hope that this process today proves that one of those concerns isn't founded. I mean, we don't have financial information in our packet from these businesses. It's used by the board to make that decision. So for business owners who may be considering applying, I mean, the program is still open, right?
Yeah.
The money is still available. So if we don't do anything, we can still apply.
I don't believe the program is open. It's not on.
So we did close the window, but we had included the caveat that we could always reopen if there was still funding available or if additional funding was allocated. So this is something that we can reopen anytime and set a new window of application period.
So, I mean, I do think that there is value, especially in a granting program as opposed to a lending program, to having financial information provided to verify the need. Because this is taxpayer money that's being given and not returned. We don't want to go through a fiduciary process or a lending process with OCU. So I would support opening this back up, using this meeting. This financial information isn't appearing in the packet. It's not a part of the public record, and encourage businesses who may have been hesitant to apply to reconsider.
I think we may just need to potentially revise the criteria surrounding revenue loss, aligning with median pandemic loss slightly. Maybe just showing some sort of loss there rather than having it done against a metric that we don't have access to.
I think that there's also a really good point being made here about the business type of if we can have people self-report on whether, instead of having a specific certified. I know that might feel like, I feel like a lot of things have shown that just having people self-report, people might be more comfortable doing it and might have better access. I think there's a good point that there are some fees related to being a part of these organizations, so I think that consideration, changing that would also be helpful.
And perhaps we could consider, because the scoring is on a 0 to 2 scale, that 1 would be self-certified and 2 would be externally certified.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's not a requirement, it's like a bonus point.
Right, you get extra points for doing it.
Yeah.
Not kicked out if you don't.
So with a housing trust fund, guidelines, and it's changed a bit, so I can't recall quite where that stands now, but that requires a group to review financial status. So I believe that's city employees, is that correct?
It's Opportunities Credit Union does the lending review. If it's a loan, there's a loan and a grant portion for one of the programs, the other 2 are loans. So Opportunities Credit Union does some of that, and then staff receives the financial information. Angela, correct me if I misstate any of this. So staff receives the financial information. The Housing Commission does not receive that financial information when they get, it's similar to this, that there'd be an anonymous packet.
Right. So is it feasible to have something set up so that the staff have the ability to review the information, the financial information from applicants?
I did review the financial information from the applicants. And I'm the person who converted this to be redacted and took the revenue information from their tax paperwork and put it into a single Excel document. So that way they didn't have the full tax documents from all of the applicants.
I see, okay.
Well, so what, in here we're saying this is a scoring criteria that you could demonstrate a positive balance. Perhaps that is just a criteria, it's part of the review of staff saying, yes, you can apply, and then there's no part of the board having to review the financials. I mean, I think we did this because we wanted this to be open for people who didn't exist, in businesses that didn't exist pre-pandemic.
And the
waiver for that situation?
The positive balance sheet pre-COVID was actually the one thing that we had an issue obtaining. One business did not have a balance sheet. One business submitted a negative balance sheet. And the third business indicated that the balance sheet they had was inaccurate and was currently under review by their bookkeeper. So that was the one item that we actually did not receive from all applicants, and we provided alternative information in their 2019 taxes regarding profit and loss.
I see. I mean, I think that is a point of discussion for us because these applicants here, none of them demonstrated a positive balance sheet pre-COVID. And so the actual question we have tonight is whether we're approving these, right? And then we're having the second discussion about reopening this or extending this and trying to make it easier to access. But the few people that did apply didn't meet that criteria that we set. Is that something that's important to us?
So the positive balance sheet was an evaluation criteria, but was not an eligibility. So to put that eligibility requirement on them after the fact might be problematic.
But then we stated that to be eligible, they must demonstrate the revenue loss.
Sustained revenue losses due to the pandemic, yep.
Yeah.
And then they had to have applied for the Economic Recovery Bridge Program. Those were the only two requirements.
And so you feel these three applicants did demonstrate sustained revenue loss?
So there was one applicant where the revenue change between 2019 and 2020 was actually an increase. I would need to dig a little deeper and see if there was a loss in potentially profits and that it wasn't reflective of just pricing changes to their revenue that caused the increase.
And I see that's applicant A, and they're also the one that they're claiming it isn't accurate.
Their pre-pandemic balance sheet is inaccurate.
Okay.
But the revenues were reported on their federal taxes.
Gotcha.
That's where that information came from.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But that could be potentially due to a pricing change. I'd have to dig into it a little further.
So in the interest of potentially charting a path forward, I think if we are going to substantially change the requirements of this program, and I would think that we would want to potentially reevaluate these applicants in that light or consider it a different program. But to award under the current criteria and then drastically change them, the eligibility criteria would be a problem for me. If we're changing the scoring criteria, I would be fine with approving some of these applicants today, changing the scoring criteria for the second round. But if we're changing the eligibility criteria, that would feel more problematic to me. The eligibility criteria, and so it sounds like, Angela, too, one of these would have to be reevaluated on the eligibility. Just want to make sure I'm understanding the outcome. Because multiple applicants will have demonstrated a revenue loss, but one of them you're not sure.
One of them definitely saw an increase in revenue between those years, but I'm going to check right now and see if there was a loss in profit that is potentially.
Well,
that's also inaccurate. They increased their net profit from 2019 to 2020 for applicant A.
It does feel like the intent was not carried out. I think there were already, this was before our Councilor Hurd and Councilor Renner had joined us. So it may be worth, honestly, just doing a full review and program realignment and putting it back out with some more clarity on expectations for review, outreach, hopefully an opportunity for more Q&A similar to an RFP maybe, where it's like submit your questions by this date. It can be done anonymously so that that can then be made available for anyone that has interest in applying. I mean, it seems to fall, this feels like it seems to have fallen short on a number of its phases, and not just one or two issues, but more broadly.
And so, considering that, would we want these 3 applicants to reapply? Or would we want to consider them separate programs?
I would say that I would agree with Counselor Duncan that if it's more than just some scoring changes, that we should likely consider it a wholesale revision and have the current applicants reapply. I don't feel comfortable when the scoring is potentially 12 points and no one even met half of those points. I don't feel comfortable approving the applicants with the way the scoring is.
I would feel a little uncomfortable with putting out a program, someone who meets the eligibility criteria applies, and they are the highest scoring applicant, and they aren't awarded funds. I think there's a, whether or not it was executed well, if they're eligible for the, thinking about the intent of this program was to provide ARPA funding to businesses suffering from the pandemic, and we have at least one, potentially 2 businesses asserting and meeting that basic eligibility criteria and having a non-zero score when there is available funds and there's not competitive, to not award those funds feels like we're falling down on this program. I could see rolling out a version 2.0 of this program, asking applicant A to reapply, where we might consider criteria that talk about profits or that don't require revenue loss. But I think that would be a different program. I think
Applicant A is the highest scoring too, so we are
right, but they're not eligible.
They did not experience revenue loss, so they do not meet eligibility requirements.
Okay.
I feel like it sounds like you're saying the opposite of what you just said previously about scoring changes versus eligibility changes, so.
Right,
and
I think we put out a program though where if they met the eligibility, I'm saying if we're gonna look at going forward, if we're gonna change the eligibility, it's a whole new program. I do feel like we opened this up and we told businesses this is what you can apply for, and you'll get it if you meet this basic criteria and if you beat out other applicants. There weren't enough applicants to beat out, so it's just did you meet the eligibility requirements? And we can still make a decision about if the proposed uses are eligible activities. That's a question. So I think it's really just applicant B that we could consider approving tonight, but to not approve that seems like we're essentially pulling back an offer that was made and failing to meet our obligations.
I guess I disagree that we're pulling back an offer if we're still planning on carrying through with the program. So it's just a matter of perspective on that.
I think given that we had set like a deadline, told people what they had to give us, and then they met that requirement, if we decide to change something, I feel like it's punishing the business for our change in decision. They met everything that we had asked of them up until today. So I would agree that the ones that qualify, we should move forward right now. Applicant A, for sure, I think needs to reapply. Whatever new rules we change, if they meet them, then, if there's enough money, we can grant it. But I think the ones that have met it, they met what we asked.
I agree with that as well. I think we did not do our best work here and shouldn't penalize those who did qualify, even if this program is not quite what we imagined. So in the interest of moving forward, it sounds like there's at least a majority agreement about approving the application for B. Do we feel like C, the uses are actually aligned?
Angela, did applicant C experience revenue loss?
Yes, they did. Their revenue loss was 20.26% from 2019 to 2020.
Personally, I would be fine moving that forward. I think if the spirit is the bill, Sorry, of the bill.
I can confirm with the business, they're going to need to submit documentation of how they spent the grant funding. So they would need to submit documents that are related to the improvements on their facility or payments of their lease. So if they were to submit supply receipts, those would not be eligible, but given how much commercial leasing is, I feel very confident that they're going to be able to produce documentation. They have paid leasing, at least, if not also the leasehold improvements that they're making to their property.
Right, and I think they also mention trying to bring at least bringing employees up to full time, which also that would definitely fall into and sounds good for the business and the economy.
Does someone want to make a motion to approve applications B and C?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Jim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Is there a
Aye.
point for
Aye.
discussion?
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
So I feel like we kind of left a point open for conversation there that I'd like to revisit if we have time.
I'm not sure what was left open. You were opposed to distributing any
Well, if I can
funds,
ask
and
the
several
question, I
people
can
were
explain.
supportive of that. You're welcome to do so.
So one of the caveats that we put on it was that we were going to move forward if the eligibility was not going to change. So is the intent that the eligibility will not change.
I don't think that was the caveat.
That was not the caveat. The eligibility, what the discussion that I heard, and that I believe we just voted on, is that applicants B and C met the current program eligibility, and we should not withhold funding because we don't like how our program played out. And so we're willing to award them funding. Applicant A did not meet the eligibility, so they will have to reapply to whatever we move forward with. And so that is the next question for us is, are we changing eligibility or just the way this is getting scored or reviewed?
I do think that there should be some sort of loss for them to qualify for this. Otherwise, you would just apply for a loan, right, if you're looking for more money. And then in terms of the score sheet, I agree with Aurora. Like, I think people should be able to self-certify for the MBEWE or LGBTQIA+. And I like the idea of doing one if you self-certify or two if you are fully certified.
Well, let's talk about eligible applicants, activities. Ignoring the evaluation criteria for now, is there anything in there that we wish to change?
So it sounds like the confusion was around the bridge grant and what people thought they could or couldn't apply. Is there better wording, or?
I think what the question is, so we wanted people to access the state funds before accessing ours because it's the same,
Yeah.
essentially the same thing, right? So my question would be, is there something making you that's making some people ineligible for the bridge program? If that is a concern, we could put a caveat in here. If you're, if you're not eligible to apply for that, then like prove that to us. Meredith, do you have any insight into why a business felt that they were not able to apply for the state bridge funds?
Well, I actually heard from a business through their tax accountant, who said that they personally work with a lot of small businesses, and they had like only 10% of their businesses that they work with were eligible for the economic bridge grant loan. I did not ask further questions, like,
Yep.
I didn't think they would be able to tell me, but that was really shocking to hear. So I do think that when this program is reopened, yeah, perhaps it's a rewording or just saying like, please apply even if you're ineligible for this, bridge grant loan, just select I'm not eligible and explain why. I think that would just need to be, yeah. And again, some of that tax accountant spoke to me the day of the deadline of the program, which was pretty disappointing. I had been asking for feedback for months, but it is what it is. So yeah, that I think would be a great thing. It wouldn't change the eligibility. It wouldn't change the program at all. It would just be perhaps like a bolding and a rewording for that section.
I think we could definitely reword that so that it's, if you are eligible, you have applied for bridge grant funding. And then if somebody says no, they have to say why they're not eligible. I think that's very doable. The application actually already allows for that. So the minor changing in the guidelines so that it's a little clearer that you can still apply if you are ineligible for that state funding.
I would be supportive of that change.
Me too.
And I think I can put my head together with Meredith and go through some of the things that caused the hiccups in the scoring and the evaluation of the applicants and see if we can clean this up a little bit so that we have things that we can evaluate based on what we're receiving from the applicants.
Do you feel you have enough information from our conversation tonight to take that forward?
Based on what we've discussed so far, I can revise what's in existence. If there's something that you're considering that would be new to this program, please let me know. But we can edit what we've got here based on the feedback I've received so far.
Before we're moving
Just to clarify,
forward.
it would just be on the scoring rubric side.
That's what I've heard so far, but I did want to just pause and see if there is anything else new or different.
I have a question for Meredith. So we do have a number of businesses that have opened during the pandemic.
Yes.
Is there a sense that without support that they will likely continue to have, likely to have financial struggles or, have increased financial struggles without access to this opportunity?
So the original intent of this program was to support existing businesses,
Correct.
assuming basically that people who opened in 2020 knew the risks, which, that's neither here nor there. No, they already know that we'd still be wearing masks right now. But I do think that, I'm sure that they would be delighted to have access to funding. To be honest, again, take this with a grain of salt. I only heard from one business that had opened in 2020 that was interested. I believe the same business reached out to Angela. So we only heard from one. I mean, that's what I'm assuming.
And I did hear from one business that has not yet opened but hopes to open as well.
Yeah, I just heard from one business that opened during the pandemic. So it could be just that the language was clear enough that the others knew they weren't eligible. So there wasn't that, discussion. But I mean, I don't think any small business owner would turn down the opportunity to apply for grant funding.
Sure, and I think the part of the reason why I'm asking the question is since we're not seeing a competitive process right now, whether or not it's worth it to open it up to new businesses as well. Council has already agreed to allocate up to $100,000, and I think that it would be worth having the council consider the question.
So that would be an eligibility change because they wouldn't be able to, obviously.
Correct.
Or would it be an eligible? Wait.
Because of the bridge
Would,
grant.
okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking it's the rubric. Okay. Yeah. I should know.
Could we possibly look at projected earnings versus what they actually made and consider that their potential loss?
We could also do 2021 versus 2020. Now that the tax deadline has passed for 2021, we did not accept taxes for 2021 from applicants because they were not due at the time that applications were supposed to be submitted. So
That
we
still wouldn't
in.
apply to people that applied that opened in 2021 though.
Yeah.
Correct.
So there would have to be another way.
Right. Because it seems the way that we're making the change to the eligibility requirement for the bridge grant is saying, no, you're not they didn't apply or they weren't eligible for the bridge grant and just providing a reason why. This would essentially opening it to businesses that were not in existence pre-pandemic. It essentially is the same thing. So maybe there isn't a change.
It's just, why haven't you submitted your
Right.
2019? Yeah.
Well, I would disagree. We're saying the eligibility is you've demonstrated sustained revenue losses from 19 to 21. If you weren't in existence for that time, then you technically don't meet this eligibility. The bridge grant change is just for people who cannot actually qualify to apply for it. If you are eligible to apply for bridge grant, I believe we still want them to do that before they come to this program.
So that would go to Councilor Runner's recommendation, or Angela's moving it to from 2019 to 2020, and whether or not we want to consider that.
I think it's hard to go on projected earnings personally because it requires a little bit more financial analysis by staff and potentially business sector expertise as opposed to tax returns, which are declared numbers. It's unfortunate, but I think if we do want to tie this to pandemic impact, it's got to be on revenue loss.
I agree. I don't want to ask staff to do more financial analysis at this point, and I also think that with these changes and more outreach, maybe we will see more uptake. We have, essentially, if we have awarded 2, we still have space for 8 more. So it's not like we're seeking a ton of applicants. You know, we're trying to meet a small need.
We can do different sorts of public outreach this time. We can have those Q&A sessions so that people can ask questions. We can allow people to give them a path to submit questions in advance right from the website where the application is listed.
Yeah, and maybe on the application page, if it's just like super clear, the only person looking at your financials is going to be a city staff.
Yep.
Will not end up in a public record. I think that's a fair concern for.
Yeah, there was a confidentiality piece to the guidelines, but it was very small and it may have been easily missed. I know that nobody used that marking where they could mark something as confidential so that it wasn't shared. But I just automatically assumed I was not going to be sharing somebody's tax paperwork.
Yeah.
And I would suggest on the 3rd page an authorization for release of information, making it clear what types of information is being released, because that to me reads like all the information you submit will go to the evaluation committee, which isn't the case. So I think, yeah, just making sure it's there as well would be great.
Sure.
I think maybe if there's still slots after having another opening, then maybe we could revisit doing
Yeah.
a whole different program. Because I do see the benefit of, say, if someone opened up in 2020 or 2021, they might be filling a spot for a business that went out of business during 2020. So they'd be filling a gap due to the pandemic. So giving them that support would be great, but I think we should make sure that these businesses are covered first.
Yeah, so we can have this exact same discussion again.
Well, and I would put a higher level lens on it. We had to structure this program this way because it was ARPA funds that we were using under ARPA rules,
Right.
which is no longer the case for these funds. I don't think we should change this discussion, but when we think about unprogrammed money after the 2nd round, we have other potential grant needs in the city that are not business recovery related or that are business support related that are not ARPA tied. So I think we also could consider a broader look then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I also just want to revisit the question about whether or not the Downtown Winooski Board is the appropriate entity to review applications, given that there seemed to be quite a great deal of discomfort with giving some determinations on some of the questions.
Angela, what about Finance Commission?
I mean, happy to have them weigh in on this. I think that would be public voices. We definitely have some business owners on that commission.
What do you all feel about that? They're not looking at the business finances, they're doing the scoring.
I believe that I would feel more comfortable with that.
I'm supportive of that.
Okay. We'll bring that task to them.
It's an ambitious group.
Indeed. All right, anything else to discuss on the COVID recovery business grants? Okay. Thank you, Angela. Let's move on to item B. We have several fun event permits. We've got Ray to introduce, and then Meredith, of course.
How's it going, everybody? And Meredith will likely do most of the talking here, but just wanted to share that these 3 event permits were reviewed by staff at our event review meeting. We're recommending approval of all of them. I'm not sure, Mayor, if you'd prefer to take them all in one motion or independently, but happy to go either way on that. But Meredith can answer questions about specifics if there are any.
You want to just do a broad overview?
Of all of the events? Do you guys want to do you mean like do a broad motion for all of the approvals?
I want a motion for everything together unless someone's got a problem with one of them, which I doubt anyone will. But maybe just for the public record, like a 2-minute about each of these events.
Sure. Do you want to tell me what the order of them is?
Winooski Farmers Market.
Okay, so the Winooski Farmers Market is back this year. We're so excited. If you recall, 2020 we had to cancel, and then in 2021 we offered. We kind of ramped up slowly. We were unsure about how things were going to go, so we had about, I think, 12 seasonal vendors, and we had other various vendors. This year, we're looking at quite a few more vendors, which is great, and we're also bringing back some concurrent events that are going to increase or maybe even double the size of it on certain days, like French Heritage Day and other themed days. We're looking in with other community groups to bring other music and activities and different things to the market. Since it already is a community meeting place, it's already a known quantity, we feel comfortable kind of expanding it to reflect our community. So we're really excited to just hit the gas this year. There is fresh produce, and we offer EBT. We have an EBT card reader. We offer crop cash through NOFA, which essentially gives someone who uses EBT $10 free to spend at the market if they take out $10. So it's an incredible program. We've worked really hard to make those barriers reduced and to really train our market managers well to be a very kind voice to the community. And we've been really, really proud of the massive uptick we've seen in the last couple of years of people coming and using their EBT at the market. We are able to track very carefully through NOFA. Obviously, they track very carefully, and we've been really proud of our work there. And so we are looking forward to inviting even more community members down to the market to use their EBT, get that free additional dollars that they can spend on produce, seed starts even, which is really cool. So we're really excited about that. We're also working with a local artist who's going to be coming down probably 2 times a month and hosting really neat kids activities. And so we're really excited to have some sort of fresh ideas there and offer, again, a community space that doesn't require you to purchase anything. It doesn't require you to do anything. You just can come and listen and to music and, hang out. So we're really excited about that. And that's on Winooski Falls Way in front of the Champlain Mill.
Sundays 10 to 2,
Yes.
May 29 to October 16.
That's right. So just a few weeks every Sunday.
Next up, Winooski Wednesdays.
Awesome.
Oh, is there a question?
Yeah. So I noticed that as regarding restrooms, that in the past it has accessed the GMT bus station that has been closed. In the event that does remain closed, is there a backup?
We can't provide, at this point, we don't provide restrooms. We have a couple of area businesses that have opened up to us, and this is what they did in early 2021 when that was closed as well. So we work with a few area businesses that I'm not going to name here, but they have a relationship with us where they allow the vendors to use their restrooms. But unfortunately, at this time, we don't have a plan for a public restroom space for attendees.
Okay. My concern is at least for the vendors.
Yes, the vendors, we have them all set, yeah.
Okay.
We work with a couple of places that will open their doors to them.
Especially because I think in some cases that I mean, it can be a prolonged period of time. It's not just 10 to 2 for them. So.
No, yeah, they're there at 8
Yeah.
o'clock and they don't leave
Yeah,
till
that's-
3. Yeah,
Yeah, that would
it's a
be
long day.
It would be a very long day.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, we take care of our vendors for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that question though, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yep. That's it.
Okay, Winooski Wednesdays?
Winooski Wednesdays, we're really excited this year. We're adding some dates. So the event was typically, historically, started by the wonderful community services team, was the first Wednesday of the month for the summer months. And last year we did it June, July, August, and September. And this year we're doing 2 in June, 2 in July, and 3 in August. So we're really excited about that expansion. That was fully due to public, the community's support. We also were able to secure a sponsor to cover all of our hard costs again this year, which is great. So we're bringing in headlining bands that are, run the gamut and are all family friendly, but all have different perspectives, different types of music. So we'll have 7 quite different shows, which is really exciting. And then we always pull in a hyper-local community member or group to come and perform as our opener. So we've had some really good great, being able to give people their big break, I guess, where they maybe wouldn't have another outlet, and we pay them, a stipend to perform, which is really exciting, especially for the high school students that have been a part of that. Just as an example, our first Winooski Wednesdays opener will be the Winooski Jazz Ensemble. So those students are so talented, and we're so glad to be welcoming them back again this year.
Thank you. Questions about this one?
I'm so excited to hear that about the expansion.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm, and I mean, I thought last year was really impressive. So very excited to see the vendors coming into the circle as well.
Yep, so we'll be having market again, open air market. And actually this event this year we've decided is rain or shine. So if it is drizzling, we may have to cancel the bands, but we have some friends who are DJs, and so we know that we can have some DJs come in and go under a tent more comfortably than a band would with instruments. So that's also a really exciting expansion for us, where no matter what, we're having this event.
All right. Yeah, I don't have any questions. Just wanted to share my enthusiasm.
Great.
Okay, and then our last event is Juneteenth.
Great, and I think Yaz is on the call too if she wants to jump in. I don't know who's in control of this.
She's here.
Yeah.
Here, I'm right here.
Hi, Yaz.
Hi.
We're co-conspirators on this event, so do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. So, it'll be Winooski's second annual Juneteenth event, very similar to what happened last year. It will be 3 to 8 p.m. in Rotary Park. We have, partnerships with various artists, musicians, live artists, dancers, singers, drummers, storytellers, all the things that are going to be taking place. And the theme this year is actually connecting through food and music, and the history and the legacy of, the connection with Black Americans to African Americans. The point is to try to make the connection for all of our residents to understand that Juneteenth is for everyone. Juneteenth is especially for folks who are people of color, and we want to come together and celebrate. And so we want to try to lessen the distinction between we want to try to just make sure that we can get folks into the Rotary to celebrate with us alongside us as well. So there's a lot of really wonderful partnerships that are happening with vendors, with food vendors, with local musicians, with lots and lots of Winooskians to come in and just celebrate together. So it's going to be a really wonderful event. I don't want to say much more than that though, because you'll have to learn for yourself if you want to come down and check it out.
And also just to point out, we are still, of course, accepting people who want to be a part of the event, whether they want to help plan, volunteer. Part of making this event really inclusive is having great volunteer crew. So having people that are there helping people cross the road. I know crossing guard doesn't seem very exciting, but if you believe in inclusivity of events, that's the key hinge for this kind of event. We want to make sure that people are comfortable and safe, and that we're also respecting all ability levels. So we want to make sure that this is a super welcoming event to all. And like Yaz said, I just wanted to make a plug for, you know, in our community in particular, where we have people from Africa that are here that may not, this doesn't necessarily, you know, isn't on their radar as a holiday. In Winooski, we've made a very clear kind of pitch that this is an event about Black joy in all forms. And so it's an American holiday, but we are really working hard to make sure that we're gathering, you know, community members and cool food opportunities and activities from every corner of Winooski to make sure that we can really have this be just a celebration and a joyful event for all.
All right.
If there's anybody, just gonna just plug in as well in case folks watch the recording, but we do have meetings this weekly. If folks would like to join in the process or show up to give an idea about participating, you can go to the Downtown Winooski webpage, and there's a section on there where you can email the Downtown Winooski board directly, actually really Meredith, directly to kind of pitch your idea. To pitch your idea of how you'd like to. So feel free if folks are wanting to do that.
I have a quick question. I know that it's a collaboration between the city and Downtown Winooski. Has there been any outreach to the Winooski School Board for collaboration as well?
So there is participation through the Winooski schools, through the performers that we are partnering with. There hasn't been a direct outreach to the school board, no.
Okay.
But because the partnerships that we have formulated and the people that we have scheduled, there is collaboration with Winooski teachers, faculty, and students.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Thanks for all of the coordination, all the effort that goes into planning such an awesome event. So thank you both.
All right. I don't hear any concerns. Does someone want to move to approve these event permits?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Thomas, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Meredith. Ray, yes?
I was so worried. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to move on to item C. This is on for discussion or approval, an Abenaki land acknowledgement and land rights resolution. And I don't know who to introduce. Do you want to do it?
So
Jim?
I'm introducing on behalf of the we and the team listed here. So I really want to thank them for the opportunity to put this one out there, but also acknowledge the hard work that Ray and Yasmin and Paul have done to make this a reality. As part of our centennial celebration, part of that discussion at the committee was around the fact that this celebration is happening on unceded land of the Abenaki people. As part of that, we reached out to Chief Don Stevens of the Nalhegan Band of the Abenaki tribe to discuss the idea of a land acknowledgement and something to go behind that land acknowledgement, because it's one thing to say that we recognize this as a city, which I think is an important step that this resolution could take, but actually doing something further to start to solidify that partnership and make some positive change in the city for those who used to occupy this land and still do. So the resolution that's been drafted has both a land acknowledgement section and some use rights that are asserted for members of recognized tribes in the Vermont state statutes. So that's specifically use rights for gathering in our natural areas and parks. It is the ability to have fees waived. So this will take additional work, but directing staff to set up an ordinance change to waive fees for cultural ceremonies and other uses at city facilities. And so commitment to some planning and work on Memorial Park. So changing some names of features there, using traditional Abenaki language or meaning, and commitment to involving Abenaki leadership in future forest management planning for our natural areas, should that occur. So that's what's before you. Yaz and Ray and Paul have been amazing in the work that they've done to make this reality, so they know the details, and I don't know if you want to add anything, any of you, or if you have any questions, I'm sure they can answer that, but I just want to thank them for all the work they did to get this here.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Thank you, staff. Anything to add?
I think, Jim, you did a great job, and definitely team effort all the way around. A lot of drafts bouncing around, and huge appreciation as well to Chief Stevens, who was a big help in kind of getting us to the draft as well. So yeah, really proud to bring it tonight.
So are there any questions from council?
I do have a couple questions. I heard from some community members on this, and I'm just wondering what the conversation with the chief was like. There was some concern that I heard that the resolution may not go far enough in terms of what it is offering. So I was wondering if the chief felt like what was being offered up was substantial, or if he had any concerns.
Yeah, I think and you can speak to this, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, or others, because I can only see your face, Ray, on the screen. But the chief actually suggested some of these items that were added, because we were originally just talking about a land acknowledgement and a presence at the birthday party celebration, and in talking about, the words are nice, but what can we actually put behind it? And the use rights is something he brought up as something they've been trying to establish in other municipalities and state governments. So I think that was a meaningful addition that we could do here.
Perfect.
I just wanted to add that, Chief John was definitely a major part of this process. There were no decisions that were made without his input. And the reason we also recognize that this is a stepping stone, really. This is the outline, this is the beginning of a long-lasting partnership that we are trying to establish with the local Abenaki communities within our area, right in Winooski, and throughout the state of Vermont. And so, this is really, and I think that there is a piece in the resolution as well around ongoing partnerships. There are other ideas and things that were brought to the table. And one of the things that we decided as a group was to really focus on things that we could get done between now and the centennial, and then things that we could table for a later time that possibly the Inclusion and Belonging Commission could take up. And so there will be further things coming down the road. It's just we wanted to make sure that we followed through on, the things that we knew were doable with our current capacity, especially among staff.
I can certainly appreciate that approach.
Great to know that there's some more plans and thoughts going forward past this. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bryn, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So just for public record here, we are resolving that the city of Winooski formally acknowledges that this community was built on the unceded land of the Abenaki people, and we recognize that the Abenaki people, their culture, and their experiences are fundamental to the existence and culture of our city. A version of this land acknowledgement will be read during the opening of our community birthday on June 4th, followed by the raising of the Abenaki flag in Rotary Park, and included in full as dedicated section on the city's website. We affirm the following land use rights in perpetuity for Abenaki citizens enrolled in Abenaki tribes recognized by the Vermont state statutes. The right to sustainably harvest wild ramps, fiddleheads, fungi, and any culturally important plants or plant parts in any park or natural area in Winooski. Adoption of this resolution constitutes the prior approval required by our city ordinance section 1608. Upon further completion of a public hearing and ordinance amendment, the right to have all fees associated with renting city facilities waived for ceremonies, programs, and other culturally important events per section 2805 of the city ordinance. The city of Winooski shall work in partnership with the official Abenaki leadership on all further forest management plans for Winooski's natural areas. The city of Winooski is hereby committed to working with members of the Abenaki community to rename Memorial Park and the trails within using words and phrases from Abenaki language. Thank you all very much. I will read that in full, I think, maybe at the ceremony on Saturday. We will move on to item D. This is on for discussion or approval as well, a Vermont Community Fund grant. Yes.
Yes, you may have, many of you might have heard about the connection or the combined effort between the Vermont League of Cities and Towns and the Vermont Community Fund, and it's to produce the Equitable and Inclusive Communities grant. It's up to $10,000 And it is something that I've had my eye on and been waiting for quite some time, and it just dropped a short time ago. And I thought, part of the use or the main use for that grant would be to supply the compensation for the inclusion and belonging commissioners that are going to be, hopefully established next month. Next month now. It was an item that was up for discussion prior, and it was something that we had discussed would need to be funded. And I think this is a very, very essential use of this funding, because I really want to make sure that we do this in a way that is accessible to as many folks in the community as possible, and being able to provide funding to support, childcare services, to support a compensation plan, to support, possibly having it at an alternative location, et cetera, I think are going to be really key in the success of this group going forward. So, does anybody have any questions about the grant specifically? It's pretty straightforward. I think I included the link to the actual information on the VCF website, but happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you. And you pretty much previewed this to us already at the previous discussion, so. It's just the finalization, hoping to be able to get the application in as soon as the approval goes through. Any questions, concerns on this grant application?
If you can refresh my memory, the funding, the length of time for the funding that's anticipated. So if we're fortunate enough to be granted the $10,000, will it last 1 year, 2 years? What's the anticipated timeline?
It's 1 year. It's a 12-month time frame. Okay. However, I do believe that it's going to be that you will be able to reapply for it, similar to the women's funding.
Okay. And then have you thought about a sustainable, or has there been conversations with Angela or other staff about sustainable funding for the commissioners assuming that we get the grant, that the grant is completed?
Go ahead.
That is a conversation that we need to initiate. It would be at our discussion to tell staff that we want them to find money to pay for volunteers.
Okay.
So that's something that we should do ahead of the fall budgeting. It's not a discussion or decision we should make separate from thinking about our long-term financials.
Okay, so that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Christine. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Any other questions? Someone want to make a motion to approve this grant application?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Aurora, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Yaz. Welcome, Chief Audie, with the Local Emergency Management Plan.
Okay, I have the Deputy Health Officer appointment first, but I can cover either one.
Deputy Health Officer appointment. Thank you.
So the appointment of the Deputy Health Officer is to really open the resources for our staff to deal with a whole host of different situations that may arise in the city. Mainly it puts us under the arm of the Department of Health. So we deal with dog bites, animal bites, quarantining of such, and really helps us in the rental registry with the Vermont rental codes, which is under the Department of Health. And so again, this is just really creating depth on the bench, if you will, by appointing Bruce, who currently serves as our fire marshal.
Thank you, Chief. We always appoint someone from staff for this role. Any questions?
That's correct. I serve as health officer, unless the mayor would like to serve.
Thank you.
And then the full-time staff, the fire marshal and assistant fire marshal, both will, if you appoint Bruce, serve as deputy health officers.
Any questions on this role?
Just a question. Assuming the deputy health officer, at what points in time would they be called upon, I guess? Is that when you're unavailable, or?
So really, we touch this every day in the course of our work. So the health officer I deal with a lot of the different administrative pieces, but in their day-to-day daily duties as far as inspections, they're utilizing the state codes. So this appointment again creates depth and really opens resources for us to be able to help the residents.
Okay, all right, that's what I was looking for, if this was more a necessity for roles and responsibilities, or if it was something coming from the, from the state as far as requiring essentially, bench depth, as you were mentioning.
I would say it's a combination of both, but it is a value to the city and how our community risk reduction efforts go.
Okay, thank you.
Someone want to make a motion to approve the appointment of Bruce Palmer as Deputy Health Officer?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And now we're on to item F, the emergency.
Yes. So the local emergency management plan is an annual document that we update. This again, every year we visit this, we're required to do it. It's part of our eligibility for federal funding. And this year was simply administrative changes, changes in counselors. We updated the maps. Every year we try to add a little bit as far as enhancing the plan. Whether it's how we contact the American Red Cross or the maps that we provide. And these plans go to regional planning, and then they go to Vermont Emergency Management, and then the feds for approval. So there's a format in which they provide to us that we fill out. For the last 4 years, there's been nothing that came back as far as once we submit, it's approved. Willing to answer any questions.
Questions from council on this annual statutory task? Glad to have you all reviewing this on a yearly basis. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Jim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, it's 7:30 p.m. I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. We can reconvene at 7:35. Thank you. discussion and potential approval. Burlington Airport Commission appointment. So back in February, the governor signed H454, an act related to approval of an amendment to the city of Burlington's charter, adding a representative seat for the city of Winooski on the Burlington Airport Board of Commissioners. So the city of Burlington owns the airport. They have this advisory commission. It's not a decision-making or like judicial body, but provides advisory to the Burlington City Council, which they take very seriously. Through this charter change, we are able, as the city council, to make an appointment to that body to have a representative. The term is 3 years, and any legal voter of the city of Winooski can fill that seat. The recommendation that I have made in this memo is to consider a member of this body as our initial appointment. I suggest that, the city of South Burlington is represented there as well. They have a member of city council to liaise between the two organizations. I think it strengthens the connection between us as leadership and the airport, and also gives us a chance to become better familiar with the role, to be able to support a resident appointee. That said, we could appoint a resident. We could also appoint a member of staff. Our zoning administrator has stayed in the loop on the noise insulation program, which is kind of our primary area of focus. That body does see updates on the program, probably has some input on rollout. We've been attending this meeting, various members of the council in a guest role for more than a year now. So I am opening the conversation tonight to, do we want to make an appointment from council, staff, residents? Is anyone here in particular interested? Questions?
I agree that I think it should be somebody from council. That said, I know that we all have jobs that may not allow us to get somewhere at 4 o'clock. If that is the case, I then think it should be a member of staff. Personally, I can't be there at 4 o'clock, but I don't know about any of the rest of you.
It is a hybrid, so Zoom and in-person meeting, 4 p.m. some Wednesday of the month that I can't recall right now. It might be in my memo. Third? Thank you. Yeah, so that's consideration too, for sure.
And there was a comment from a resident about the 3-year term.
Yes, I forwarded that to you all. So a resident had brought up the fact that, this term would expire in presumably 2025, which is beyond the length of any of our terms. So, we would if we did appoint from council, we would know that in a year or two, depending on the person, potentially we would need to reappoint. If somebody was reelected, we wouldn't, it's very open to change. We also could make an appointment now, and even if nobody turned over, decide to make a different appointment, next year. That is our rate as well.
Is this is balanced by an additional seat in Burlington, is that correct?
Yes, they're also adding another Burlington seat. So it's a body of 5 right now. We'll be 6, and that'll make 7.
And is that going to be, presumably it would be nice to have an appointment on board for the next meeting, especially if that, ideally. So I guess if there's somebody who's interested in stepping up by this 3rd Wednesday of the month, that would be great. But I don't know that we'll meet again immediately before, but consider.
Yeah, their next meeting is scheduled to be on the 18th. I'm not hearing specific interest in anyone for this role. Does anyone else have thoughts on the council, staff, resident decision?
I would support having a city staff for just consistency. I think the component that you know, having Eric do it, as the zoning administrator, also bridging between the planning commission, and those connections, I think, just give that role, a larger, picture and, potentially more ability, to, you know, follow up with any questions that are like, just that might take longer if it was a counselor, so.
I think there is an interesting connection there to the planning commission and the noise program. So, you know, Eric has already been in conversation with airport staff as they've designed the program. He's given access to our map, shared information. But I do think there's potentially learning from how the noise program gets rolled out that could inform zoning changes we want to make, or like building code requirements or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see the benefit of having it for this first potential term be a city council or city staff, because we would really need, if it was a resident, we'd really need them to also commit to report back to us, which would be an additional time for them. So what we're still figuring out, we want consistency with this board. We want, so making sure that we have consistent attendance, and definitely want that consistent communication.
Yeah, and with the noise program just rolling out, having somebody who's familiar with that and not having to get up to speed is useful as well.
Yeah.
I think it could be a different conversation once it's up and running.
Yeah, so then my one question is with capacity.
I was told that Eric did potentially have time to do this.
So he said he was definitely interested, given the importance of it. I do just want to call out, he does have planning commission and DRB sort of later meetings. I know this one's at like 4:00, so it's kind of earlier end of day. I don't know if he knows the exact day, like
the
with
schedule?
third Wednesday, so we'd probably want to just confirm that.
Okay.
He's in a conference this week, so he's not available. So I would just ask, I can go back and confirm it with him.
Is it possible to, essentially do an overarching delegation to our incoming city manager and to have her appoint from there? Or is it the expectation that the council will say the particular role if it's going to be city staff?
I think we have to appoint an individual by name.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Can I ask when the first meeting is? Do we know when that is?
I believe May 18th.
May 18th.
It's typically the third Wednesday at 4 p.m.
So would it make sense for confirm with Eric and then bring it back on
Yeah.
the 16th and then do the official appointment?
Yep.
So tentatively
Let's do that.
plan.
Great.
Okay. So no approval this evening, just discussion. We will revisit this at our next meeting. Thank you. So let's move on then to item H, the policy priorities and strategy scheduling.
Great. So nothing surprising, I don't think here. So we've sort of set a date already on when that retreat will be for the council and leadership to talk about FY23 goals, our work plan for the coming year. So what we're proposing here, as previously discussed, May 21st would be the retreat date, from 9:30 till 1-ish, say, see how it goes. Locations to be determined. So if you guys have any recommendations, it is nice to get out of this room, is what I've heard a lot of times.
Yeah.
So we've talked internally about, I think VSAC has some space, CCB has some space if we wanted to look there. Senior Center is potentially an option again. OCC has the testing going on, so we can't go there, unfortunately. But we've got some time to figure out what that space is, and I can check, some of the other partner
Would
groups.
there be space at the school, or is that not optional?
Oh, I can ask.
It might be nice to be in the new building.
Yeah, I forget. We had a discussion on leadership. There is some, I think there is some hoops you have to go through to get in school space, but maybe the mayor has some pull there.
I'll inquire.
Yep.
I don't know, you know, what's available there is changing rapidly with the construction.
Yeah. So we will figure out a space. The intent would be that this month, if schedules work, we would chat about these work plans at our commission meetings too. So leadership's going to take it back, teach their commission meetings.
As a potential alternative, what about the event space in the pool? I don't know if it's large enough.
If there's nobody there, I think it's large enough. If nobody from the public comes, it would probably be large enough. I know, Ray.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty tight for leadership staff and council for that number of hours.
Yeah.
But if the weather's nice.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll do some exploring on spaces. So, yep, we'll go to commissions in May this month. Leadership team has already met. We've had one meeting, and I think we're going to finalize this coming week our sort of internal recommendations. So we've got a head start on that. And then our intent is to, once we finalize that, we'll put together a package for you all with our recommendations and a memo describing sort of what those are, well ahead of the retreat, so you have time to review it. So right now, I think we're targeting like at least by May 11th, we'll probably have something earlier than that.
Great.
And then if there's, the proposed agendas on the back here as well. If you have any thoughts about an agenda or a better layout. One thing we did add for this year is just going around the room with leadership, giving you guys a rough idea of like our baseline operations, what we do, so you kind of have an idea of what our day-to-day looks like as well versus just our work plan stuff. So that's something new, but if you have any recommendations, let us know.
It might be nice, and I don't, barring your decision and input, of course, just getting an update on staffing, city staffing, and, what vacancies we have, or, who's, I guess, just getting a sense of like the org chart, who's recently on board, and what vacancies we're looking to fill.
Yeah, there was a nice slide in the budget presentation that we should re-include and refresh on those short-term funded positions.
Yep.
I'm wondering if part of the kind of beginning welcome goals of the day, if I'm not exactly sure what this would look like, but to kind of ground ourselves in thinking about equity and inclusion. So start from that point before we really get into the rest, so we can kind of hold that at the center.
We did something that I don't remember
Yep.
last year that Yaz helped with. So we should bring that back.
Yeah, we did do an exercise last year that
Yeah.
we can work with Yasmin on that.
Yeah, that was like characteristics of white supremacy culture. I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah.
Discussion.
And then I'm just curious, granted, like this is reviewing the master plan, strategies, if there's any benefit or need to just reviewing some of, refresher on some of the budget for what has been approved or for FY23, because that may contribute to the conversation on the priorities.
Yeah, it could be good to get an update from Angela, especially with where we are with the AFSCME, the COLA situation. Because I do think this is a chance to say, like, here are our priorities when we get to the funding discussion.
Right.
Maybe not make a very specific decision yet, but give staff an understanding
Along
of
those
where
lines.
we're headed.
Yeah. We won't know about any of the grants by then, because it's only in like 2-3 weeks,
Yeah.
so.
With ARPA and TIF, do we want to think about have that specifically as part of this, or just kind of going to be in the background?
I think it's part of like the general priorities, and it's something we should think about. I think we can include some like base information in the part orientation to the master plan progress. I really wanted us to be able to review ARPA survey responses ahead of this. I know that's not like ready yet, but I think to the extent any of that information could be shared with us, it could be useful.
Yeah, even interim findings.
Yeah.
Helpful.
I mean, I know we need to caveat that information with knowing that there is more outreach happening. But I think we should get some of that input before we have this discussion.
Yeah, but what we might have may reflect a very specific point of view.
Right, and
Yeah.
which we can talk about, like
Definitely.
where we think this came from, but at least some information would be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And that might be helpful too in just questioning who is not there and making sure that the outreach is meeting that.
Oh, I also wondered if we should invite, and I guess this might depend on space as well, but commission chairs. It isn't open to the public meeting, but I don't know if we've done like an explicit invitation in the past. You know, we do get the commission feedback to review.
I don't think we've done that before. Sounds like it could be beneficial to at least extend the invitation.
Yeah, and we can mention that when we all, well, you all will be there as liaisons too, but we can do other commission meetings, do invites.
Would it work to be commission chairs or someone appointed by the commission?
Yeah.
Just in case.
I mean, in reality, they could all attend.
Right.
But like a direct ask for somebody to come, essentially.
Yeah. Well, if they all attend, do we then have to warn another
2 meetings? Yeah.
It would be one mega warning, where it would be a council warning, and all commissions possible. But that's technically very easy to do.
Okay.
Can you call it that? The mega warning?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Okay, let's all take responsibility for extending that invitation at our upcoming commission meetings. And if you don't have one, then can staff liaison take care of it?
Yeah, and I would say like our next infrastructure commission meeting isn't until just like 2 days, 3 days before. So
Okay.
I know that I will probably do that this week just because
That's fine
it's
too.
too close to have the potential or expectation that somebody could be free. with
Yeah.
2 day notice.
Yeah, actually, I mean, you don't have to wait until day of either.
Yeah.
So we'll just take responsibility for extending that invitation to our various chairs. However that works out.
And very exciting, Elaine will be there too to help facilitate. So
Yeah.
that'll be a good introduction for her too.
Yeah, seriously.
This is on for approval. Are there other thoughts, questions on the process?
I had one little question, which is just on the documents that were sent. I noticed that some things had 1, 2, or 3 asterisks, and I was just wondering if there's a specific reason why.
Yes, there is.
That's from last year. When we did this, counselors put sticky notes on the things that they wanted to prioritize.
Okay. So that is like past council vote
Yeah.
in a way? Okay. That is helpful.
You will see some of these, spoiler alert, some of these will be in your FY23. So do not be surprised.
Yes, we did not complete everything in the plan.
Yeah.
No.
And we never will, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Some of this is a continuation.
All right. Motion to approve the policy priorities and strategy scheduling.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Aurora, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. So next up, we have an executive session warrant pursuant to Vermont State Statute, Section 3131E, pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party. I am looking for a motion to find that we should have this discussion in executive session following that state statute.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion to enter into executive session, inviting John Rauscher, Angela Aldieri, and Karen Stackpole.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So we're going to enter into executive session. We're going to use a different Zoom line. We're only discussing this single topic. We'll come back out of executive session into this existing Zoom line. We may take a vote on this item and then we will adjourn. So we are on item I. I am looking for a motion to authorize interim city manager John Rauscher to sign the settlement agreement on behalf of the city council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. This brings us to the end of tonight's agenda. I am seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.